My name is Rebecca Hartley. I'm 33 years old, and I remember the precise moment my world shifted. It was Thanksgiving, a crowded living room filled with family laughter, clattering dishes, and the smell of roasted turkey. I was sitting beside my mother on the couch when I casually asked, "Did the hospital finally send my surgery date? I've been waiting." She didn't look at me. She just kept cutting her slice of pie and said lazily, "Oh, yeah, they sent it last week." Last week? Last week? My heart dropped. I blinked slowly, as if rewinding her words in my head because they didn't make sense. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" She shrugged without lifting her eyes. "It slipped my mind." The tone, it was so dismissive, so casual, so wrong. But then I heard it, a soft, choking gasp from behind me. I turned and saw my younger sister, Rachel, standing near the hallway with the glass of cider in her hand, eyes wide like she got caught. I stared at her, and in that instant, I just knew. She knew something. My stomach twisted as a sudden realization began piecing itself together like broken glass rearranging into a blade. That was the moment. Everything started unraveling. And before I continue, please, if you're listening to this, make sure you're subscribed and stay with me to the end, because this story, it gets darker than you think. The crazy part is, I wasn't nosy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't asking for attention. I just wanted to know when the hospital would schedule the surgery I'd been preparing for. Gallbladder removal. Nothing cosmetic, nothing optional, something I needed. The waiting had been agonizing. But that night, in that living room, I felt something I rarely felt in my family. Like I didn't matter. Let me take you back. I grew up in a mid-sized town outside Cincinnati. Our family wasn't wealthy, but we were stable. My parents had this unspoken hierarchy. Rachel, the baby, glowing center of attention, flawless, adored, and me, the older child, capable, independent, strong enough to not need anything. I remember being 10 years old and Rachel was 5, and when she scraped her knee on the driveway, my mother panicked, swooped her up, and smothered her with attention. But when I sprained my wrist at school, a real injury, Mom simply said, "You'll be fine, you're tough." That became my role. Be fine, be strong, need nothing. As we grew older, the pattern hardened. Rachel cried, Rachel got comforted. Rachel struggled, Rachel got lifted. Rachel asked, Rachel received. I didn't ask, and so I received nothing. And I thought I was okay with that. I really did. Emotionally, I always wanted one simple thing: to be cared about. Not worshipped, not favored, just considered. To feel like someone would notice if I fell. That desire grew silently through childhood into adulthood. I learned to smile through things, to shrug, to internalize. But this surgery, this was different. This wasn't a forgotten birthday or an ignored achievement. This was my health, my pain, my body. Back to Thanksgiving. When Mom said they sent it last week, I should have just followed up with another question, but something in me snapped. "Can I see the message?" I asked, voice tight. Mom paused, and it was only half a second, but it was enough. I saw hesitation and guilt. Then Rachel spoke, too fast. "I deleted it. I thought it was spam. I was on Mom's iPad. She stuttered. My head turned slowly toward her, like my body was moving while my soul watched from above.
you deleted my surgery date?" She tried to fix her voice, tried to make it normal. "I didn't mean to. I just tapped too fast." But the lie sat between us like something rotten. I felt it in my bones. This wasn't a mistake. I stood up, heart pounding, breath shallow. "Rachel, did you delete it on purpose?" The room went quiet. So quiet that I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Rachel's eyes flicked to Mom, just for a split second. There. That was it. That silent communication, that look, the one that said, "Back me up." And Mom did. Immediately. "Oh, Rebecca, stop being dramatic. It was an accident. Nobody's trying to sabotage your whatever it is." Whatever it is. My health was whatever it is. My pain was whatever it is. Dad was in his chair reading the sports section, oblivious. My brother-in-law Tyler was on the floor playing with the dog, also ignoring everything. It felt like I was screaming underwater and everyone else was breathing fine. I left early, didn't take leftovers, didn't say goodbye. I got in my car, sat in the darkness, and shook. Not cried, shook. It was rage and heartbreak mixing together like oil and water. But it got worse. When I got home, I logged into my patient portal, and there it was. The hospital had sent the surgery date 3 times, and each time, someone using my mother's login deleted the messages. Not opened, not read. Deleted. Who deletes hospital notifications without reading them? Who assumes medical updates are spam? No one. No one with common sense. But someone with intention? Oh yes. Someone could do exactly that. I started replaying conversations in my head. "Rachel, you're just overly sensitive." "Mom, Rebecca always makes things complicated." Rachel, again, "You act like everything's about you." But what if this time something really was about me and they couldn't stand it? Rachel always needed to be the center, and if I suddenly had a medical crisis, attention would shift. People would ask about me, people would worry about me, people would call me, and she, radiant golden child, would fade out of spotlight for once. Did she hate that? Did she sabotage me, literally? And did Mom help? I didn't have proof, yet, but life has a way of revealing things at the right moment. The next morning, I called the hospital myself. I got my new surgery date directly. The nurse said, "We thought you were ignoring us. Good thing you called." Ignoring them, because someone made it look like I was. My voice trembled as I hung up. I felt played with, tampered with, dismissed. But I wasn't done. Not at all. 2 days later, I went to Mom's house unexpectedly. I walked inside, unannounced, and found Rachel in the kitchen laughing with Mom over coffee. They froze when they saw me, like I wasn't supposed to see them relaxed, comfortable, untouched by guilt. I didn't greet them. I walked straight to the dining room table where Mom's iPad lay charging. Mom said sharply, "Rebecca, don't touch my..." But I already picked it up, opened it, went to deleted messages, scrolled. And there, sitting in the trash folder, were the hospital notifications. And every deletion was tagged with the same device ID, Rachel's iPhone. My vision tunneled. My ears ranged. My heart thudded so hard I heard it. She didn't even use the iPad. She used her phone, meaning she logged in with purpose. I turned to Rachel, and she finally dropped the mask. Her face changed, sharp, defensive. She said, "You always exaggerate everything. You're fine. It's just a stupid gallbladder. You're not dying. Can you stop acting like some tragic victim?" I stared at her. My voice was calm, strangely calm. You deleted all of them. She shrugged. So what? You could have called the hospital yourself. That wasn't just carelessness. That was intent. A deliberate act. And for the first time, ever, I realized something horrifying. My family wasn't just neglectful. They were willing to jeopardize my health to keep me in a role, the invisible one. That night, I sat on my couch and made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront them emotionally. I wasn't going to plead or explode or beg for understanding. No. I would do something far more terrifying. I would cut emotional access. I would pull the oxygen away from their drama. I would finally stop trying to be included and start protecting myself. But that wasn't the end, because a week later, the real reason Rachel sabotaged my surgery notifications was revealed. And trust me, it was much darker than jealousy. When I decided to distance myself from my family, it wasn't a sudden, impulsive reaction. It was the slow unclenching of a fist that I didn't realize I'd been holding for most of my life. The days after Thanksgiving felt strangely quiet. I turned off message notifications, muted family chats, and let calls go unanswered. There was a freeing stillness in that silence, and at the same time, a rising anxiety. Because part of withdrawing also means facing the truth. I had spent my entire life trying to be included by people who had already decided I wasn't essential. I started noticing memories I had previously dismissed, small, insignificant moments that suddenly made sense when reframed as patterns. Like how Rachel always accidentally misplaced notes about my achievements, a college acceptance letter that got lost in the mail, a scholarship notification that slipped under the fridge, even a voicemail from a job recruiter that she forgot to pass on. Back then, I believed her each time, assuming the universe just played rough with me. But maybe it wasn't fate. Maybe it was Rachel. Rachel had this way of wrapping her sabotage in sugar. She was charming, blonde, petite, with a sweet laughter that made people instantly trust her. Family friends adored her, teachers doted on her, and relatives compared us constantly. Rachel's so social. Rachel's always smiling. Rebecca, you're so quiet. That was the narrative. Rachel, bright and warm, me, distant and self-sufficient. But self-sufficient is often just code for emotionally starved. In childhood, I used to sneak into Rachel's room when she wasn't home and look at her belongings, the little letters my mom wrote her, the notes of encouragement, the thoughtful tokens. I didn't envy the objects. I envied the sentiment behind them. I don't think Rachel ever realized how much I envied being cared for. She just knew she liked being at the center of attention, and she would quietly eliminate any threat to that position. But the surgery situation felt different. It wasn't competition over who got more applause. It was hindering my access to medical care. And I couldn't shake the sound of her voice that day, dripping with annoyance, telling me, "You're not dying. Stop acting like some tragic victim." Her resentment wasn't new, but the intensity was. One evening, about 5 days after Thanksgiving, I received a text from my father, one of the few to reach out. "Your mother is worried. Did we do something wrong?" That message stung in a way I can't explain, because the question wasn't malicious. It was oblivious. Dad never liked emotional confrontations. He stayed buried in sports, finances, yard work, anything to avoid messy vulnerability. He wasn't cruel. He was just unreachable. I typed back, "I just need space. I'll be in touch eventually." He responded with a thumbs up emoji. That simple, casual thumb felt like a summary of our relationship. Short, surface level, emotionally efficient. Meanwhile, life moved forward. I returned to work, tried to keep my mind occupied, but my chest felt heavy. The upcoming surgery weighed on me, not the procedure itself, but the thought that I would go through it alone. And I realized something painful. I was always alone during hard moments. My best friend Mara, who lived 2 cities over, was the only one I confided in. When I told her about the deleted notifications, she gasped. "That's insane, Rebecca. That's not just toxic, that's dangerous." I laughed bitterly. It's my family. They don't believe anything is serious unless it happens to Rachel. Mara asked gently, "Do you want me there the day of?" That made me pause. I felt tears rise, slow, hot, burning. Yes, I'd really appreciate that. She said she would take off work, drive over early, and stay through the recovery period. That one offer of support felt like sunlight hitting frozen skin. But while I was building boundaries, Rachel was plotting something else, something I didn't yet understand. A few days later, I saw Mom's name flash across my phone. I ignored it. She called again and again. Then Rachel called, then Tyler, then Dad. Finally, I picked up, not to reconnect, but because I feared something urgent. Mom's voice came through frantic. "Rebecca, we just heard back from Dr. Lennox. Your condition is worse than you told us. Why didn't you say something?" My heart froze. "What? What do you mean worse?" Mom exhaled shakily. "Rachel forwarded me some screenshots from your patient portal. The doctor said there's risk of complications, that it might require more than gallbladder removal, possibly pancreatic involvement." My body went numb. "What screenshots?" I whispered. Mom repeated, "Rachel has your portal access. She sent us images." I felt sick. "What do you mean she has my access?" Mom said it casually, like it was normal. "She always helps with these things. She has your password. You gave it to her years ago when you had strep, remember?" My heart slammed in my chest. Yes. Years ago, when I was 27, sick and exhausted, I had asked Rachel to log in for me and check a test result because I was too weak to get out of bed. And apparently, she had kept the password. I felt cold. Fully cold. Rachel had been inside my portal, not just deleting hospital notifications, but reading my private medical information and now, apparently, sending selective pieces of it to my mother. I said, voice trembling with fury, "Mom, that's private medical information. She shouldn't have my login." Mom responded sharply, "Oh, stop it. It's your sister. Family share information." I gripped the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. "Not medical privacy." Mom sighed dramatically. "Rebecca, must everything be a conflict?" Rachel was worried. Worried. Sure she was. Worried that I might be sick enough to receive attention.
After I hung up, I immediately logged into my portal to check my records. But when I tried, the screen flashed, "Incorrect password." I tried again. Wrong. Again. Wrong. Rachel had changed the password. That was when something inside me broke, but not in a fragile way, more like metal snapping and revealing something stronger underneath. I went into a cold, focused state, documenting everything. I contacted the hospital's administrative support. I explained unauthorized access. The woman on the line was calm and efficient. "We'll secure your account immediately," she said. They reset it, enabled two-factor authentication, and sent a warning notification about privacy security. For the first time in this saga, I felt protected by someone, even if it was just an IT department. But I needed answers, and I needed them directly from Rachel. So the next day, I drove over to her house. Tyler answered the door, surprised to see me. "Rebecca, hey, everything okay?" I said flatly, "Where's Rachel?" He gestured inward. I stepped inside. Rachel was in the living room scrolling her phone. She looked up slowly. The smirk was subtle, but unmistakable. "Well, well, the prodigal sister returns." I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I didn't pretend. I asked, "Why did you change my medical login?" She shrugged. "Because you were overreacting. I didn't want you spiraling over every little warning." I stared at her, absorbing every poisonous word. "It's my health," I said. "Oh, please. Everything turns into some dramatic crisis with you lately. It's exhausting." I raised my voice, just slightly. Deleting hospital messages was not an accident. Logging into my portal was not an accident. Changing my password was not an accident. You're deliberately interfering with my care. She set her phone down. "Don't flatter yourself. Nobody cares that much about your surgery." That hit. But I remained steady. "Then why do all this?" For the first time, she hesitated. And then she snapped, annoyed rather than apologetic. "Because Mom doesn't need more stress. She already worries about me. She doesn't need to worry about you, too." There it was. The truth. Ugly, raw, revealing. Rachel instinctively saw emotional resources as finite and attention as currency, and she guarded it like a starving animal. I stood there, stunned. "You sabotaged my medical care because you didn't want Mom worrying about me?" Rachel threw up her hands. "Yes, fine, whatever. You want the truth? Here it is. You're dramatic. You always think you're fine until suddenly you're not, and then everyone has to panic over you for 2 weeks." I laughed, not with humor, but with disbelief. "Rachel, you get a cold, and people treat you like you're dying. I have real medical issues, and apparently I'm stealing the spotlight." She glared at me. "You always steal something. You just don't see it." And then Tyler spoke, quietly. "I think you owe your sister an apology." Rachel whipped around. "For what? She's making this a bigger deal than it is." Tyler didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. "You didn't just hide messages. You altered access to her medical account. That's not okay, Rach." Rachel flushed red. She stood up abruptly. "Tyler, don't start. Rachel loves playing victim. You're falling for it." Tyler turned to me. "Is your surgery date set now?" I nodded. He asked gently, "Do you need a ride?" That simple kindness made my throat tighten. Rachel snapped, "She's not going along. I'll go." I stared at her. "You are the last person I want anywhere near my hospital care." The tension crackled. Rachel's face contorted, panic mixed with anger, and she suddenly burst out. "Mom said I should be the one with her. She trusts me more than you." My eyes widened. Tyler's eyebrows shot up, but my voice remained icy calm. "You've been speaking to Mom about my surgery without me?" Rachel froze. Tyler whispered, "Rachel, what did you tell her?" She stammered, I told her, I said," and then something slipped. She blurted out, "I told her it wasn't urgent, that you were exaggerating the symptoms, that you just wanted sympathy." I inhaled sharply. Tyler muttered, "Rachel, Jesus." She kept going, panicked now. "I told her you were fine, because seriously, you seem fine. You always seem fine. And whenever something's about you, Mom stops checking on me as much, and that's when I realized Rachel wasn't protecting Mom. She was protecting her monopoly, her emotional supply, her spotlight. I stood there in silence. Then I said quietly, "Rachel, do you actually care whether I'm okay? Or do you just care whether I'm visible?" She didn't answer. She just looked away. Tyler sat down, rubbing his temples. I could tell this wasn't the first time he'd glimpsed the side of her, just the first time it was undeniable. After a long moment, he looked up and said something that changed everything. "Rebecca, there's something you don't know, something Rachel has been hiding from everyone, about you." Rachel snapped her head around. "Tyler, don't!" He continued anyway. "It's about what she told your mother months ago, before the surgery issue even began." I felt my heart racing. Rachel was shaking her head violently, eyes wild. "Tyler, shut up!" But he didn't. He looked me in the eye and said, "She told your mother that she believes you exaggerate your health problems because she thinks you have a mental disorder." I stared at him, frozen. A mental disorder? Me? What? "And she specifically said that you may have Munchausen syndrome." Rachel gasped. "Tyler, you promised!" I didn't hear the rest, because in that moment, I felt the floor drop out from under me. She didn't just neglect me. She didn't just hide my notifications. She didn't just invade my account. She actively planted the idea that I fabricate illness for attention. She framed me as delusional. She portrayed me as someone who invented suffering. That's when the truth crystallized. Rachel wasn't protecting attention. She was protecting an entire narrative. One where she is the caring, fragile central priority, and I am the unstable, dramatic sister who shouldn't be taken seriously. The shock physically hurt, like a punch to the chest. And that's when Rachel did something I'll never forget. She stepped closer and whispered, trembling with rage, "People will always believe me over you." I don't remember driving home after that conversation. I just remember gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing left in my world. My ears were still ringing with Rachel's voice. "People will always believe me over you." It wasn't just arrogant. It was revealing. Rachel genuinely believed she had the authority to rewrite reality. And the worst part, she might be right. When I reached home, I didn't cry. Not immediately. I walked into my apartment, closed the door behind me, and slid down to the floor, feeling like someone pulled a thread in my life and everything unraveled. I tried replaying everything. How long had she been telling people I was unstable? How many conversations had occurred behind my back? How many times had family members smiled at me while secretly thinking I was fabricating pain for attention? Eventually, the tears came. Slow, silent tears that felt like grief. Not grief for Rachel, but grief for the version of my family I wanted to exist but never actually had. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was finally seeing Rachel clearly after decades of distortion. A memory bubbled up, one I hadn't thought about in years. I was 14, Rachel was 17, and we were both at the pediatrician. I had terrible abdominal cramps, so bad I was doubled over. The doctor asked me questions, but Rachel kept interrupting. She always says her stomach hurts. She cries so easily. She's dramatic. She likes the attention. The doctor assumed she was being protective or helpful, and I was too young to realize what was actually happening. Rachel was shaping how others perceived me. Even back then, she was building a narrative. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from Mom. Her voice sounded tight and uneasy. "Rebecca, call me. We need to talk about this disorder thing."
I'm very confused, and I just want to understand what's true." That hurt more than anything. The fact that she didn't just dismiss Rachel's claims, that she actually wondered whether I was mentally unstable, felt like betrayal from a different direction. I called her. She answered immediately. "Rebecca, I'm worried about all of this." I kept my voice steady. "Mom, nothing Rachel said is true. I don't have any disorder. I'm not inventing symptoms. I don't want attention. I want to be healthy." Mom hesitated, and I heard uncertainty. "But Rachel said you sometimes exaggerate your pain, and the doctors never find anything." That was the moment I realized how deep Rachel's influence ran. I inhaled sharply. "Mom, when I had COVID, did Rachel go around saying I was overreacting?" Mom paused. "She did mention you made it sound worse than it was. When I had migraines and had to quit my old job for medical leave, did Rachel tell you I dramatized my symptoms?" She implied you were sensitive." I closed my eyes. "Mom, do you see the pattern?" Silence. Long silence. Then finally, "I don't know what to think right now." Not, "I believe you," not, "I trust you," just confusion. That hurt, but it was also clarifying. I couldn't change her perception in one call. Later that day, I met with my therapist, Dr. Shore, someone I'd been seeing occasionally for stress, not anything psychological like Rachel implied. When I told her what Rachel said, she didn't look shocked. She looked serious. "That's a form of emotional sabotage," she said calmly. I asked quietly, "Do you think I've ever exhibited anything like Munchausen?" She replied firmly, "Rebecca, I've seen zero evidence of that. You downplay your pain, if anything. You struggle alone because you don't want to burden people." Hearing that was freeing, like someone put verbal structure around a truth I already felt but couldn't articulate. But the real shock came next. Dr. Shore asked a simple question. "In your sister's childhood, did she often get attention for being sick?" I frowned. Yes. Actually, yes. Rachel had asthma as a kid. She often got special treatment, rushed care, indulgent sympathy. And Mom, especially, responded dramatically to her symptoms. I remember sitting quietly nearby as Mom said over and over, "Rachel, sweetheart, are you breathing okay? Do you need anything? Does it hurt?" I was the kid who got, "You're fine, shake it off." Rachel was the one who got, "Oh no, poor thing." I never realized how that dynamic might have shaped Rachel's worldview, that illness equals attention. Dr. Shore continued, "Sometimes the person who accuses someone of fabricating illness is the one who feels threatened by losing their identity as the one who gets care." My jaw slowly dropped. "You're suggesting that Rachel may be projecting? She might fear being overshadowed in vulnerability." It was like someone turned on a light inside my brain. After therapy, I drove home, thinking of Rachel differently, not as a villain, but as someone desperately afraid of losing emotional territory. But that didn't excuse her behavior. It explained it, partially, but didn't justify it. A few days later, I got a call that changed everything. It was from the hospital. "Miss McKenna, we finished securing your account. We also wanted to inform you that someone attempted to log in again using your old credentials." My blood chilled. "Do you know what time?" "Yes, yesterday at 6:14 p.m. That was after our confrontation. She was still trying to access it. That night, I made a decision. I would not go into surgery with unresolved poison in my life. I would not let Rachel shape the narrative. So, I requested a family meeting at my parents' house. The next Saturday, I walked into the living room and found Mom folding her arms Dad waiting awkwardly, Rachel looking defensive, and Tyler sitting stiffly beside her. I took a seat. I asked for this meeting because there are truths that need to be said, and I want everyone to hear them clearly. Rachel scoffed. Oh God, another speech. I ignored her. I found out Rachel was logging into my medical account. I found out she changed my password. I found out she forwarded selected medical warnings to Mom while downplaying the seriousness of my condition. And I found out she has told people I exaggerate my health problems because of a mental disorder I do not have. Mom flinched. Dad frowned deeply. Rachel muttered, "This is ridiculous." I continued, voice shaking. Every time I've been sick, truly sick, Rachel reframed my pain as exaggeration. She made me look unstable so she could stay in the role of the fragile sister, the one who needs attention. Rachel jumped up. That's absurd. I had asthma. I couldn't breathe. I had a real illness. I nodded slowly. Yes, you did. And you deserved care. But I wasn't allowed to be sick. I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable. I wasn't allowed to be seen. Mom's eyes softened, just barely, but Rachel's face hardened. Maybe, she said sharply, maybe you are overreacting. Maybe you want to be special for once. That's when Tyler finally spoke, voice low but firm. Rachel, stop. You crossed the line. You knew exactly what you were doing. Rachel glared at him. Oh, great, take her side now. He cut her off. You told your mother she shouldn't take Rebecca's symptoms seriously. You told her it was manipulation. You told her Rebecca likes being sick because it gets her attention. That was cruel. Dad leaned in. Rachel, is that true? Rachel faltered, then snapped back. I just said what I believed. Mom whispered timidly, Rachel, why would you say that about your sister? Then, Rachel broke. Not gently, but explosively. Because she gets to be normal, she gets to be strong, she gets to be independent. And what am I? The weak one, the delicate one, the problem child. Everyone treats me like I'm fragile and I can't escape it. And the second she has something wrong, suddenly she gets the sympathy? No, I won't lose that. It's all I have. The room fell silent. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Dad looked shocked. Tyler stared like he was seeing Rachel, truly seeing her. Rachel was breathing hard, trembling, cheeks red, shoulders shaking. She had finally told the truth. I spoke softly. Rachel, I don't want your sympathy. I never wanted your spotlight. I just want to be healthy. I want to be safe. I want to be respected. But Rachel looked broken. She whispered, I can't help it. People care about me when I'm sick. If you're sick too, there's less left for me. And just as I was taking that in, Dad exhaled and said quietly, Rebecca, there's something else you need to know. Something your mother and I haven't told you. My heart started racing. I looked at him. What? Dad slowly turned toward Mom. Mom wiped her eyes and nodded. Then Dad said gently, years ago, when you were around 12, we actually suspected that you might have a disorder, and Rachel knew about it because we told her. I stared at him, stunned. A disorder? Me? At 12? my parents suspected something and told Rachel, but not me? My voice came out barely audible. What disorder? Dad swallowed hard. Mom whispered, "We thought you might be autistic." I didn't sleep the night after Thanksgiving. Or maybe I did, and it just felt like drowning inside my own thoughts. When dawn came, I sat in my car outside the hospital parking lot for a long time, just watching people walk in and out of the entrance. People with loved ones beside them, people who had someone to hold their hand. And I remember thinking, it doesn't matter who shares your blood. Real family is who shows up when it hurts. I went in, spoke with the scheduling nurse, and she gently explained that when they emailed the surgery date weeks ago, it had been sent directly to Megan's email, the one she insisted I use just for convenience. That was the moment I knew, with clarity sharp as a blade, that this wasn't an accident or oversight. She had hijacked the communication on purpose. Her jealousy over the attention I might receive during surgery, or maybe her need to control me emotionally, whatever it was intentional. And I felt something inside me finally stop begging for her love.
I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I walked out, sat in my car, and tried to decide whether to tell my parents everything or to simply disappear from their expectations altogether. But I guess I underestimated one thing. Truth has a wild way of exploding on its own. The next day, Dad called, not to ask how I was doing, but to ask if I had apologized to Megan yet for embarrassing her at Thanksgiving. I almost laughed. Instead, I calmly told him I needed to come by the house that evening. He agreed, though reluctantly. And so, that night, I walked into the living room of the home I grew up in, with childhood photos still lining the hallway. Me missing a tooth in a second-grade grin, Megan in her ballet costume, both of us in matching Christmas pajamas. Back then, we looked like real sisters. Somewhere along the road to adulthood, that illusion shattered. They were all in the living room, Mom, Dad, and Megan. Dad stood with his arms crossed. Mom had that familiar concerned but judgmental expression. Megan sat like she was the victim of some public trial. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shake. I just spoke. I told them everything, how the surgery email was sent weeks ago, how Megan deliberately didn't tell me, how she let me panic emotionally, how she sat across from me at Thanksgiving pretending ignorance while knowing full well she'd kept that information. Dad blinked, stunned but uncertain. Mom shook her head slightly, like she didn't believe me. And Megan, the actress of a lifetime, burst into tears. "I didn't mean to," she sobbed. I forgot to tell you. I was busy. I'm taking care of my own life, you know? Everything doesn't revolve around you." And Mom, predictably, went straight to comforting her. Dad sighed like he was bored with the conflict. And I stood there alone. Again. Not believed, not supported, not protected. I left the house feeling like a ghost, like I had been erased by my own family's preference for convenience over truth. But here's the funny thing about feeling that alone. Sometimes it pushes you toward the exact voice you need, your own. As I sat in my car outside their house, my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from the hospital directly to my address this time. The surgery date. Confirmed. 3 weeks away. Pre-operative consultation scheduled. Instructions attached. And at the end of the email,
We apologize for any confusion regarding prior communications. I didn't cry when I read it. I just felt a quiet sense of return, like my life was back in my hands finally. Over the next few days, my parents and I hardly spoke. Megan posted photos of herself on social media, smiling with friends, captioned with things like, "Protect your peace," and "Cut off toxic people." I had to laugh, softly, bitterly. She was gaslighting the internet now. A week later, I received a handwritten card in the mail. From Dad. Inside, it said, "Your mother and I have spoken. We believe Megan didn't mean harm. Families sometimes misunderstand each other. You should be the bigger person." The bigger person. Always the bigger person. Always the forgiver. Always the one who swallows pain instead of spreading it. I threw the card into the recycling bin. As the surgery approached, something surprising happened. People outside my family, friends, coworkers, and even acquaintances stepped in. Tara from work offered to drive me on the surgery day. Mrs. Carmichael from next door started leaving supportive notes on my door. Even my boss checked in to remind me I could take extra recovery days. The support came from everywhere except those related to me by blood. And strangely, that realization hurt less than I expected. It actually felt a bit clarifying. Now, here's the twist no one saw coming. 3 days before my surgery, I received a call from the hospital's patient info department. They said there had been a privacy complaint filed by Megan, claiming that my medical information was sent to her email by mistake and that she should not have been held responsible. The receptionist sounded irritated, professional, and restrained, but she asked a question that made me sit up straight. "Just to confirm, did you ever authorize your sister to receive your medical information?" "No, I never had. Not verbally, not signed, not implied." And so, they documented everything. The hospital officially logged that Megan had been improperly accessing communication intended for me. The hospital reprimanded her formally. And just like that, the narrative shifted. The truth found paper.
The night before my surgery, I slept well, better than I expected. Maybe because I had accepted something fundamental. People who love you do not need proof. They show you through action. And people who hurt you may cry convincingly, may twist narratives easily, may win your parents' hearts, but they cannot counterfeit truth indefinitely. Morning came, and Tara picked me up. She held my hand in the waiting room, not out of duty, but empathy. I remember breathing slowly, watching nurses pass by, listening to the soft beeping of hospital monitors, and then my parents walked in. Together, hesitant, but there. I blinked, stunned. Mom's face was pale, Dad's eyes were red. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, "We got the full explanation from the hospital." Mom nodded slowly. "We didn't understand the severity of what she did. She didn't use Megan's name. Maybe that was a start." And then Mom did something she rarely did. She apologized. Quietly, stiffly, but sincerely. "You didn't deserve that," she said. "We should have listened to you first." Those words felt like a reset button on childhood itself. Still, it wasn't magically healed. I didn't leap into their arms. I didn't absolve everything. I just nodded and said thank you. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a door. It's a slow turning wheel. The surgery went smoothly. When I woke up afterward, I was groggy, thirsty, and surrounded by softly humming machines. Tara was there. Dad was still there. Mom had gone home early. But I noticed something. I didn't look for Megan. I didn't need her presence. I didn't crave her validation.
Something inside me was finally untethered from that lifelong dynamic of imbalance. Recovery took weeks. During that time, I didn't hear from Megan at all. Not a text, not a call, not a message. And honestly, I didn't chase one. One afternoon in January, she finally sent a long text about how she was sorry if I felt hurt, and how she never intended to cause distress, and how our relationship shouldn't be destroyed over a misunderstanding. The word misunderstanding was the one that made my jaw tighten, because that was the core difference between us. I called actions by their names, she called them misconceptions. So I wrote back, not harshly, but clearly. I said, I forgive you, but I'm establishing boundaries now. Trust needs to be rebuilt with honesty and respect. I'm not available for emotional manipulation anymore. I wish you well. She left the message unread. That night, I sat on my couch, a soft blanket around me, hot tea in hand. I looked around at my little home, my space, my life, my choices, and I realized this. We cannot force people to treat us kindly. We can only decide how long we allow mistreatment to occupy our emotional space. I wasn't angry anymore, just free. Now I speak more openly about this, about medical vulnerability, about family denial, about the quiet ways people can steal your agency without laying a hand on you. I don't share from bitterness, I share from healing. Because this experience taught me that betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it happens through silence, withheld information, and selective loyalty. And sometimes the greatest growth comes through finally choosing to believe your own perception over someone else's narrative. If you're listening to this now, I want you to hear me. People who dismiss your feelings will always frame you as dramatic. People who benefit from your silence will always call you difficult. People who break your trust will always claim misunderstanding. Don't let their framing blur your clarity. Today, I'm healthier, not just physically, but emotionally. I have new friendships that feel like real support. I show up for myself. I trust my instincts, and I no longer tie my worth to whether my sister approves of me or whether my parents mediate our dynamic. I'm writing my own story now, and I don't need anyone else's permission. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this from someone who should have protected you? Share your story in the comments.